No, my eyes are on a VW Buzz when they
Ooh,
the the uh, the electric van that's supposed to come out.
yeah, yeah.
That's what I would.
And it's apropos for where you live.
Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Hope everything's going great. Things are the crazy normal. And the book is coming along great. I won't bore you with too many details, but the numbers are adding up day after day. So I'll know in a few weeks if I can make my deadline. The other day, the creator of the United Forces comic and artist announced that I am writing the book. So there you go. That's the secret comic coming out later this year. Actually, will probably be coming out. Issue 1 is done. I'm going to rescript issue 1 because it was done before I really got fully involved. And we're adding an issue 0, which is kind of a real cool thing. And when I have something more to talk about that, I think it'll be pretty cool for people who are interested in the project. I was thinking about social media the other night. I was at a party and we were having this talk. And then there's just been a bunch of people talking on Twitter. And everyone's trying to figure out what to do because the service keeps changing and people are unhappy, which I totally get. I don't feel satisfied myself. It's not the bad stuff that people keep talking about. It's just the inconsistency of the service, which drives me a little crazy. I don't know. Companies have their fingers on the switch, which can just shut down a lot of hard work for a lot of people. I mean, listen, I published this podcast through Substack. They could change their mind in a heartbeat and say, hey, we don't do this anymore. The further and further we get to all this, I just don't know how everybody ends up reaching out to one another because these platforms become less and less advantageous. It's not a political thing for me. It's not even a big, I don't want to pay $8 kind of thing. And I don't want to pay $8 a month, but I don't know what it is. Is it avarice? I mean, is it the need for the people who have these companies to, squeeze every dollar out? Because I just can't believe that there isn't any money being made. It's not enough money for the people who want to be more of a billionaire than they are. So I don't know. And that's me hypothesizing. So if you're a billionaire and you have a social media company and I've offended you, I really do apologize. Anyway, this week's guest is Karl Kesel. And Karl is an amazing inker. One of the standouts from my, I guess, teen years on, though he doesn't seem as if he was working when I was a teen because he's just so ebullient and eager about all his work. So maybe it's a testament to the medium. Yeah, Karl's just killer inker and is one of these guys who just said, hey, I have an idea, did an idea, and it paid off. And he really has made a name for himself as a writer, in an industry that likes to keep people locked in little creative boxes. And hop on over to IMPOSSIBLEJONES.com and check out the campaign. It's so well structured, such a good offering. I read issue 3 and it's phenomenal. It's just really good stuff. Great comics, great fun, great artwork. It's the whole package. I just love people carving out their own space and doing their thing. I had a great time talking with Carl. He really is an inspiration in so many ways. So I hope you go check out his campaign, enjoy the conversation, and yeah, this is me with Karl Kiesel. You were at Heroes this last year, right?
Last year, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I kind of wimped out. I'm like, oh, I'll go talk to him. And I'm like, no, 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 like that. And like I scampered off. I'm typically I don't care, and I'll talk to everybody. And
Right, right.
but it was just one of those things. I just kept kind of like backing off. I don't know why.
Yeah, I do that.
But
I have to say, I've got that same problem. I'll see someone like, oh, there's Dave Gibbons. He knows me. Oh, I
mm,
won't bother him. I won't,
right,
And I like
right.
Dave. Dave is a great guy. And every time I'm at a show and Dave's there, he always comes over and, Carl, how are you doing? It's so good to see you. You know, I don't know. It's weird. I have the same sort of reaction sometimes. So I don't want to bother them. But
Yeah, there is just this kind of weird thing that happens, and and I don't know what the source of it is because you know most everyone in comics are all really kind of cool.
that's
They're
really
all
true.
open
It's
and
a great
friendly.
little industry. We're all, I think, for the most part, all of us are really good people.
Yeah, yeah. It's and I don't think it's the same kind of like the. I think the vibe might have been a little different, maybe 30, 40 years ago, because it was a much smaller world.
Yeah,
Um, even though that smaller world made really people very close, it also kind of insulated people from the outside
yeah.
in a and now with this, it's impossible to remain insulated.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. And it's impossible to know everybody now. I mean, because, you know, there's people doing Kickstarter comics. It's not just Marvel and DC and, Gold Key or whoever, Archie, there's a million. I don't know half the people doing comics. I don't know a quarter of the people doing comics anymore.
It's tough, and I mean, I like to try to spread my intention and attention
Hmm.
to as wide a net as I possibly can. Like Rich Starkings, man,
Oh, yeah.
that dude revolutionized the industry.
I know. I know. And, I didn't realize it at the time, but I look back and I see how he did. He changed everything.
Everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
I mean, because I mean, you can't like say like Laverne Kandersky or Steve Oliff were the guys who did digital coloring because they didn't. Like no one person really did that.
Hmm.
We had a sort of a confluence of accessibility and technology kind of coming together, but that whole digital lettering thing just changed it all.
Hmm. I know. Yeah, it's amazing. He was ahead of his time. He could see where everything was going. Yeah. I'm of the age where I actually remember when DC got their first computers in the offices, and how everyone was like, "Ooh, I'm not sure about this computer thing."
Sure. When was that? When do you remember that
That
happening?
was in the mid '80s, late '80s, maybe '86,
Okay.
'87 at the very latest. 80,
All
must have been
right.
more like '86. Yeah, but I remember them coming in.
Yeah, no, that's funny because I'm thinking about it. I'm like, yep, there has to be like, I mean, I remember work previous to the sort of the email world of work.
Hmm.
There
Hmm.
wasn't, that didn't really hit until that sort of mid
Yeah,
'90s when the
yeah.
when the first emails for work kind of came through. But yeah, I mean, I remember seeing like the editors back in the late '80s, I guess, at Marvel in early '90s with computers on the desk. I wonder. Now I'm thinking like, what were they doing with them?
They were, yeah, but that's why everyone was so resistant. They were like going, "What do we do with those things?" I mean, there's no graphic capabilities at all back then.
No,
No, and
no.
word processing was really just starting. So,
Yeah, yeah. I worked for a major corporation for a bunch of years, and they were so large and international that they had a relationship with Adobe. So Adobe would come into the offices every year or so and give us the Adobe pitch. And I wonder if when that ever happened with Marvel or DC when they sort of realize, hey, we probably should be talking to these guys?
Oh no, that's good. I don't know. I just know that
Yeah.
and I don't even remember now if they were. I think they were Macs. In fact, I'm almost positive that DC had Macs. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was your first computer connection really with work? Like, when did you say, like, on a work level, like, you use the computer for your making of whatever you did?
The computer. Because I know on Superman, I faxed a lot of things. I would fax.
Okay.
You know, I
Sure.
would print out scripts and then I would fax them into Carlin.
Mhm.
But that was not on a computer. It might have been towards the late '90s when I was actually. No, before that I must have been sending in scripts through the computer. I can't remember exactly. I can't remember. Somewhere in the mid '90s, would have probably been
Okay.
starting to send scripts through. Um, and then in the late '90s, then I would start scanning and getting pencils that I would print out in Blue Line. That I've inked on very few original pencils since 2000 at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. That's a wild.
Yeah.
Okay. I For me, like, I think I wrote my first few scripts back like in 91.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 91. I wrote them on the home computer
Mm-hmm.
because I had just graduated from college. So I was back there plunking away on on my father's computer to try to, just to generate scripts. And but then you'd print them out and then take the train into the city and then go
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
and then,
Yeah.
and then show them off versus email them as you would now.
Right. Yeah. I still remember the first chat rooms. Like CompuServe chat
Mm,
rooms. And
yeah.
one time, I was just trying to figure out what they were, and I was there, and like Mark Wade was going, "Kiesel, what are you doing here?"
Right. Totally. Yeah. No, that's the whole thing. There's all these I guess the writers really did flock to the chat rooms pretty
Yeah.
soon. That was
Yeah.
kind of
Hard to show off your art in those days. Almost impossible to show off your art.
no. I know. I mean, I talk with so many young creators who their world is they have this very externally focused, visual career online, and it's so alien to kind of conceive of that because it really felt like when you weren't working as an artist, you kind of just sat there like an automaton waiting for the next, person to put a quarter into the slot. It was a very strange kind of existence. And now you can just generate and just put it up online and start
I know.
reaping the, yeah, I love it.
Yeah. There are so many artists that I know simply because I saw their stuff online, and I said, "This person is really great."
Totally.
Yeah. So
Oh, absolutely. I put a tweet up today. It was really, I was just feeling so agitated because people keep posting all these amazing, hey, this book, that book, this movie, that movie, this TV, and I just was kind of losing my mind that there's just too much stuff,
there is.
and I was just losing, and I was just losing it. But like, you see so many amazing artists and storytellers
Yeah.
that, wow, it's a golden period for that.
Yeah.
I'm really happy.
I have to say, just before I got on with you, I got an email announcing that there's a book that was kickstarted a few years ago called Palomino. Did you ever hear of that book?
No, I don't think so.
It's written and drawn by a guy named Stephen Frank. It is an
Okay.
amazing book. Amazing. Palomino is amazing. And he just announced that he's releasing issues 2 and 3 of Palomino, and I signed up on the pre-launch page. It's a modern Western noir. And he owes a lot
Okay.
to Frank Miller. He owes a lot to Frank Miller, but he knows how to do it. And I will say, there's a lot of good comics on Kickstarter that I like a lot. This one is at the very top. Palomino is
Wow.
it, the first time I read it, I was just blown away. It wasn't like, wow, I really like this. I was like going, this is amazing. So
Yeah, I mean, and it feels like that frequency is like once every maybe 3 months. Like, you see something that you really can classify as amazing.
mm-hmm.
When it was like this hunt and peck kind of world, pre-digital, where you would, like the Japanese bookstores in New York City, you could go in there and you could go look through all the manga
Yeah.
because that was the only place to find it,
Yeah.
and you would just stumble onto these things which were just mind blowing.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, in New York City too. Yeah, amazing stuff that you would find there, and not just, quite honestly, for me, for a while I was getting this Japanese fashion magazine that the layouts were just gonzo. I'd never ever seen anything like it.
Right. Have you always been kind of a print media person? Like, I mean, you're mentioning layout, which is not sort of like the first thing someone would just naturally kind of flip out in a conversation. Did you I mean, were you into graphic design as well?
Yeah, I think I've always had a leaning towards that direction, you know.
Mhm.
And I have to admit, doing my own books, I really enjoy the graphic design side, the figuring out how the pieces fit together to look the most appealing. Even in the Kickstarter I'm doing now, the promo art pieces I put up on Twitter or Facebook or something, I'm very concerned with how they look. I want them to look appealing, I want to, so yeah, I've always been very attracted to graphic design. Um, I don't necessarily work at a level that certain professional designers do, but I can keep myself happy. So
Yeah, no, I mean, and your promo pieces actually really are quite good. I was looking at the whole Kickstarter run, and they're really solid. Like they're super good, they're engaging, and they have all the right info. It was like I think you and I had an exchange last week with Kelly
mhm,
Yates,
mhm.
and you sort of like and you added on to him. You're like context, like give them a date
Yeah,
and a time because like it's like that whole 24 hours thing is really arbitrary because Twitter is sort of like, hey, by the way, here's a tweet you missed 2 days
I know
ago.
it does. It happens all the time. It happens all the time.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now those are the hard learned lessons. Believe me.
yeah. Well, no, no, totally. And what's really interesting is that that whole Kickstarter culture is really a cross-pollinated culture. There's a lot of giving and taking. People
Yes,
are like,
yes.
"Hey, do this. Hey, try that. Hey, do this. This worked. That didn't work."
Hmm.
And you know that's the absolute antithesis to what the sort of the industry has been for decades and decades. There hasn't been this sort of like, hey, check it out, DC editor. This really worked for us here over at Marvel. Like nobody,
Yeah.
that never happened.
No, no, I
Maybe
know
over
what you mean. I know
beer.
what you mean, and I agree. I use a slightly different analogy. I go, you know, if I was working at DC and I heard that one of my friends was, writing Batman, I would go, "Hey, good for you." But there's part of you going, "I really would like to write Batman," but I have no desire to work on Ron Randall's Trekker. That's his book, and I'm really glad it's
Right.
successful, and I want it to be successful. But so that level of competition is stripped away. You know,
Hmm. That's a really, really great way of looking at it because we're not fighting, your brothers and sisters for the toys in the toy box.
right? Exactly.
You're sitting down with glue, scissors, and tape and making your own toys.
Hmm. Yeah.
I love that. That's a really nice way of looking at it, and I think that cross pollination is going to yield a. I mean, if you look at the timeline, the evolution has been so quick
Oh, tell me.
in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
because there was that I don't know how long it lasted, but there was that chunk of people putting up books without books being completed. So then you have this whole
Hmm.
lack of accountability on delivery that was a big problem plaguing you know, for I don't know how long, but then poof, that went away because what became de rigueur is you need to have this thing ready to go. Like it has to be available soon or people will cease
Yeah.
supporting your efforts.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, Impossible Jones is not done yet, but we are working on it, and I do have the date it will be done. And David, bless his heart, he's very reliable as penciler. He
Yeah.
says 3 pages a week, and I can set my clock to that. So
That's great.
so I know I can almost tell you to the day where it'll be done and in the printer's hands. And I'm hoping at some point to get enough ahead of the curve, meaning financially, that I could actually pay for a book
Mhm.
before I kickstart it. I am not there yet. but
Right.
hopefully I will be. It's like any
It's
small
tough.
business,
Uh-huh.
you're growing your business.
There is nothing harder than scaling a business. It is really truly like the hardest aspect of a business. You don't even have to have the best idea to have a successful business.
No, it's
But
true.
if you can scale a business well, you're going to do so much better than the poor knucklehead with that good idea and no ability to actually implement it.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm going to hop in a little quick writing question regarding the book. If so, David's putting 3 pages out a week. I love doing that final writing pass.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah,
love getting the book and getting my crack at the acting.
yeah.
Like okay, let's see how I can react to what the artist has done and give a little bit back. And do you wait for the whole thing to come in to do that, or are you able to do it in sort of smaller chunks?
Um, I have to admit, I usually do it in a big chunk. Probably the way we've structured the Impossible Jones stuff, because of my training, is kind of in 24-page chunks. So it's
Hmm.
like the equivalent of an old time issue of a comic. And sometimes we
Right.
do 28-page chapters and stuff, but usually about 24. And usually I wait till I get those 24 and then I sit down and do that final pass. I give David a plot which is broken down panel by panel. So, I just write a paragraph, Impossible Jones does this, Impossible Jones does this, someone screams on the street, that sort of thing. Um,
Hmm.
Maybe with suggested dialogue, Impossible Jones. Sometimes it'll even be, she makes a joke here, that much. I just have a feeling
Okay.
that for the pacing, I want a break from the tension at this point. Um,
Oh, that's so interesting.
and then when I get the artwork, I look at it and go, "Oh, he has her with a cup of coffee in her hand, so I can make a remark about her coffee." That sort of thing. Yeah,
Hmm.
you play off what you're given.
That's so cool because it feels this hybridized kind of approach. It's not old school Marvel plot, to penciler, and it's not so much that full script that DC really has perfected. So I like that. I think that's kind of cool. It is a little more. It's a little more improvisational, I guess. For the artist, they get a little more latitude to kind of
Right.
go to town.
And even if I break it down into a 4 or 5 panel page, if David feels that 5 panels works better as 6 or 7 or 8, he does that. And David's
Hmm.
instincts are very good. I mean, I can't think of a time I've had a trouble where I go, oh no, he missed the point totally. Which I
Right.
have worked with
Yeah.
artists who have missed the point totally.
Yeah. How do you react to that? Because my initial reaction is I screwed up. So
Well, I can't say I felt that way that time. That was a very bad. I can't. I'm not going to go into detail. It was not a good
no,
experience,
that's
and
okay.
not just because of the artist. Believe me, the artist is a great guy, has had great success. We were not a good fit, and there were other things going on at the time that was hog tying both of us tremendously.
Mm,
It was awful.
yeah.
It was awful.
It is. I mean, it's tough, man. Like there are so many things happening behind the scenes, month after month for the books that we just take for granted that show up on the shelves in comic book shops that, you just, you go, man, if only everyone knew what happened,
You don't want to see
you
how
know?
the sausage is made. Not everyone, at least.
No, 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 no. But it's just, but because it's just that because listen, so much of it sort of, induces heartache and heartbreak,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it is a rough. I mean, listen, it's not an easy business in any respect.
Hmm. No, I agree. I agree.
So yeah, so why'd you get into it?
Well, you got to get into it because you love it. That's why I got into
Yeah.
it. I love it. You know, there's no other reason to be in it. I mean, I've had some good paychecks and paydays, but generally speaking, for most of my career, I've made enough to pay my bills. But I enjoy sitting down to work every single day. Every single day, I look forward to it, and I really don't think you can ask for a lot more than that.
How do you structure your day? I mean, you're still inking and you're writing, which you're in sort of this interesting rarefied company of writer and inker. There's not a whole lot of you. You guys could fill like a large SUV.
Yeah, yeah, probably, yeah. So, I don't know. I've always been intimidated by penciling, is what it comes down to. I mean, that black blank page just stymies me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, so anyway, and I'm very slow at it. I'm slow at everything I do, but I'm really slow at penciling. So there's no way I can pay
Okay.
my bills and be a penciler. There's just no way. Um, but I can pay my bills by inking, and I can pay my bills by writing. So that's what I do. So, and I usually do them in big chunks. Like I said, I'll write for a month, and then David will be way ahead of me, and then I'll ink for a month to catch up with him and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, how did like when you like what was your self like what was your image of getting into the business? Like what did you see it looking like for
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
when you first got, I mean, when you first like, gave yourself permission to say, I'm going to get into the comic business. I'm going to try. What was your image? Were you saying, hey, I want to be a writer? I want to be, what was it that you wanted
I,
to
I,
do?
I certainly always wanted to write. I mean, from the very beginning, even just 6 months in, my first regular gig was inking Tales of the Legion of Superheroes over a beautiful, wonderful penciler named Terry Shoemaker. And after 6 months, Terry didn't want to do Legion anymore, and he loved. I haven't talked to Terry in many years at this point, although I did run into him in San Diego one year. But when Terry, we were talking at the time, and Terry loved cars. Terry loved cars tremendously, and so when I heard he wanted to leave Legion, I thought, I'm going to come up with a car idea for this guy to draw, and I'll write it and ink it, and he'll draw it. And I did submit an idea for kind of a guy with a super car, a guy. He finds a UFO and puts parts of the UFO in his car, and his car can do things. It never went anywhere. But from
Mm-hmm.
that was 6 months into my career, I was doing that. So
Okay.
so from the beginning, I saw myself as more, or hoped I could be more than just an inker in the industry. You know, so, and when I was working on Suicide Squad, I would send John Ostrander long letters. He was so patient about ideas, and I was thrilled with what John was doing. John was doing the most exciting comic in comics, as far as I was concerned. I love Suicide Squad. Um, but I would say, "Oh, and what about this? We could do this," and he would, like, pat me on the head and say, "This idea here, I think we can use this." He was very kind. He was very kind.
Okay.
And even when I was inking John Byrne, I would say, John, hey, what if Turpin was Brooklyn from the Boy Commandos all grown up? And so, and John called me Karl the Kibitzer Kesel.
Nice.
So
I love that.
but from the beginning, obviously, my mind wouldn't stop moving. Let me put it that way.
That's super interesting. I've been talking recently how I was so focused on on one aspect of the business that, like, it was all about becoming a penciler
Mhm.
versus any of the other aspects. And I did all the other aspects as a means to an end versus sort of a goal. So if I had to, like, it was just one of those kind of weird kind of mindsets. Um, but I think yours is probably a far more healthy approach to it, of that, that really kind of the enthusiastic, hey, what if kind of approach.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that,
think that's nice.
and I have to admit, inking a lot of, like, inking uh, George Perez on History of the DC Universe. I was inking all these characters, and I was like going, whatever happened to Hawk and Dove? Wouldn't it be cool if Dove was a girl? I mean, that's, because
Mm,
you're sitting there, just looking at this board for, and George Perez is not a fast ink, let me tell you.
no,
No,
I
so
would
you'd be
not
looking
think
at these
so.
pages for a long time, and they're beautiful when you get done, but it gives you a lot of time to think about what's in front of your face.
Huh. That's, that makes complete sense. I mean, you are kind of, where you're going to be for a good chunk of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and
So is that kind of where that germination for the talking about Hawk and Dove came out for
oh,
you?
definitely, it came out of inking
Yeah, yeah.
the crisis double page spread where he had line of the dead heroes, and I was doing Dove. And I
Hmm.
always liked talking Dove as a kid. I always liked the idea that they said their names, and if danger was around, they could change. That was really cool. And
Yeah.
I've always quite honestly liked characters with lower level powers like that because I like characters who
Hmm.
struggle. But yeah, I mean, it was inking that figure where I thought Dove, light blue costume, that would look so much better on a girl, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when that relaunch happened. Like that was a big deal. It was an exciting period. There were a big chunk of DC books in the in the plus minus of 2 years, which really kind of made a big hit, splash, but new things.
Hmm.
It was kind of exciting. And that was definitely right there. And who knew you had a superstar in the making? You know,
Yeah, yeah. That Rob Liefeld, whatever happened to him? Yeah,
I don't know. I don't
yeah.
know.
No,
The name
Rob's
is
done
it's
very
slight.
well, very well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I mean it was a perfect time. It was a perfect time. How did you go about that? And had you been pitching at that point in the offices?
had I pitched anything else in the office up to that point? I I don't think so. It's a little foggy, but I mean, at that point, I was living with the the lady who became my first wife, Barbara Randall, who
Hmm.
became Barbara Randall Kiesel. She was obviously an editor at DC. She had done writing, and I mean, really, it was that case where she came home from the office one day, and I said, "Yeah, I'm inking this page," and I was thinking, "Dove, girl, what do you think?" And she said, "We should pitch that." I mean, I'm pretty sure she is the
Ah,
one who said pitch it. Um,
okay.
you know, and I remember we're driving to movie theaters to see a movie, and she would say blah 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 this about there was a lot of give and take. It was a very exciting time, very
Hmm.
exciting. So, but I'm pretty sure she's the one who said we should pitch this.
There is there's a real fantastic quality of having that Socratic story development. Like when you can sit with somebody and just kind of jam out
Yeah.
like these moves that happen, within this sort of ambiguous structure of a story.
Hmm.
I love that. But okay, so I mean, but that's a big thing. I mean, that's a book relaunch pitch is not a small thing. That's not something that you can just naturally just get okay, cool, let's do it.
Well,
Now you can tell me that's
I
how it
think the
happened.
industry was different back then. I mean,
Yeah.
I know Dan Jurgens has said, he was at a convention in Dallas, Houston, and he had set up a meeting with Dick Giordano, and that's where he pitched Booster Gold. And Dan didn't even have anything written down. He went in, sat down with Dick, told him what the idea was. Dick said, "Well, what about?" And Dan said, "This is the answer. This is the answer." And Dick said, "Yeah, we got ourselves a deal here. Write something up so I can approve it, but this will happen." I mean, it was a different time back then.
Yeah. No. Wow, that's really impressive. No, and you're right. I mean, listen, I many of the things that I did, I probably should never have done. Like in the sense that like who was I to do the things that I had done? But you just have enough, moxie and chutzpah, and you just get out there and just
Well, yeah. I mean,
put it into.
I've always said any artist, it's that weird dichotomy. You have to believe you're good enough to do this, but on
Hmm.
some level, you always want to be better. So you always think you're not good enough. At least me. Let me put it that way. That's how I
Yeah.
feel. I feel on one hand, I feel I'm good enough to do this. Damn it. On the other hand, I think I'm still not good enough. Am I? No, I'm not. It's that
Yeah.
constant push and pull, constant.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it feels like. What was the so like for inking with you? Because I mean, you really are. You know, I You're a great inker. Your line is, I mean, it was noticeable for me. I would say mid 80s.
Mhm.
Like I could pick out your line,
Interesting.
and it only got really kind of clearer moving forward.
Hmm.
When I would keep seeing, because your name easy to see on a cover, easy to see in a credit. It's easy to read, but your line was just so absolutely definitive. What do you, I mean, like for you, what do you think attribute is the attribution to that?
I can't even begin to guess. I mean, I personally, I've always found my own line work a little too clean for my taste, and my work,
Mm.
obviously, at the kind of the other end of the scale would be a Bill Sienkiewicz or a Klaus Janson, who's got a very, you know, free style. Mine is very precise, very, very, very precise, and sometimes too precise. It drives me crazy. And part of that, quite honestly, is because my biggest idol in comics is Kniff, and I just love how Kniff can just slap
Hmm.
down ink, and it looks amazing. It's got a vitality to it and a life to it, um, and I love that he can combine, you know, a realistic look and a cartoony look. He opens up this huge spectrum of the sort of character that can appear in his work, um, and that
Mm-hmm.
always, and of course his writing too, especially in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. It was just so snappy and so engaging. And but anyways, his line work is always what I would like look at and study. And I think in the end I kind of ended up probably because we both studied Kniff, I ended up more like, say, a Sinnott, a Joe Sinnott, a very clean
Mm-hmm.
style, very brushy, but not quite as spontaneous as Kniff is. Nowhere near as spontaneous as Kniff. Um, but I mean, my style is my style, and I'm not saying it's a bad style. I'm just saying, like I said, I've never been a whole 100% satisfied with it. It's never quite been what I was going for, you know.
Huh.
So, but
That's it.
I think
That's
that's
interesting.
coming.
I mean, do you like if you could describe what it is? Because I mean, I do understand what you're saying, and I can feel it in myself when it comes down to aspects of my artwork.
Uh-huh.
Like I have this sort of internal vision of, okay, I want it to be like this, but then I sit down to do it, and it becomes this, sort of a detail palooza where I
Mhm.
just put way too much stuff into it when I really didn't want to do that. I really wanted to have it be a little bit more impressionistic,
Yeah,
but somehow I didn't I didn't fall on that side of the fence.
yeah, yeah. Well, all I can say is I remember one time. I don't remember the exact time, but I remember this moment in my head. I was looking at Kniff's work, and I suddenly said, "Oh my God, I can see his brushstrokes." I mean, up till then, I was very carefully, outlining a figure and stuff, and really working hard to hide my brushstrokes. And I was looking at Kniff
Mhm.
works, and I realized you can see exactly how his brush went blip, 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 and even the curve around the nose or whatever it is. And the idea that
Yeah.
you didn't have to hide your work like that, that was an epiphany for me. That would
Hmm.
really change. I'm not sure it changed much to the average reader, but it certainly changed the way I approached my work. You know?
Yeah. Well, there's that interesting like thing about the sort of forensic study of work that inspires us, where we can go beyond that sort of first level of
Yeah.
joy that it offers and get into it. And that's why the artist editions have been so
Oh,
engaging
yeah.
for
That was like the best thing
creators.
Scott Dunbier has ever done with his whole life.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if he has children, then that those are the best things he's done.
No,
But
that is true.
um,
You're very right.
yeah,
But I mean,
but the
professionally, he
oh,
justified his whole career by putting those out. Yeah,
it's a master stroke.
it
I
is.
mean, I mean, every single one that I have held and gone through, and I mean, you want to own them all
Yeah,
because there's something in every single one of those books which will offer some revelation
yeah, yeah. I agree.
to the eye.
Yeah, I mean, the Wallywood EC book is like a masterclass in inking and technique. He would just the amount of different techniques he would use and use well is it's
Uh-huh.
stunning. It's stunning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they really are just they are treasures in their own right. Did you were you no, so like inking was this terrifying experience for me.
Oh, okay.
What was it for you? I mean, how did you your journey to the dreaded unerasable inking line come into your life?
I mean, since I wanted to do comics, I knew I was going to have to work in ink, right? And it's it's hard to say exactly how all those pieces came together. I mean, I had some great teachers when I went to the Kubert School. I went there for 1 year, and so people who knew how to ink, like say Joe Kubert was there,
Mhm.
and and even quite honestly, watching some of the other classmates, John Toddleben. I've told this story a million times. He was sitting at his desk and he had 11 by 17 sheet of paper, took a pencil, and he just made this big S shape, just real quick. And he put his pencil down and he picked up a brush and he did this sea serpent that was astounding. And his only guideline was that S that he had put down. And
Huh.
it was amazing. I mean, I will have to admit, that was one of the moments where I thought, I might not have what it takes to do this job because I was
Right.
working at a level so far above what I was capable of. But
Wow.
you know,
Well, I mean, aside from looking at that at the Kniff, that that one sort of Kniff moment for you, were there other artists that you looked at and had those aha breakthroughs? Like,
I'm sure it's just hard for
yeah.
me to remember. As time went by, I could like look at Kirby's stuff and see how he had abstracted the anatomy. Oh, now I understand why
Hmm.
you put that shading there. That actually makes sense now. When I was a kid, it was
Hmm.
just this squiggly line, but now I
Yeah.
understand why it's there. That happened over time. Um, but I can't remember other than that Kniff. I'm sure there were other times, but that Kniff moment was a real light bulb moment. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you say that I guess, felt yourself to be too clean or, or precise in a sense. But like, I mean, you worked on top of, you know, John Byrne in the mid 80s.
yeah,
So, I mean, John is very of the naturalist world, the atoms world
sure,
of
sure.
that anatomy and rendering. So, I mean, I mean, did you have to fight this sort of, intention to kind of simplify everything, or
No,
or did you just go like, wow, the hell with it, I'm just gonna have fun with all these lines.
yeah, I did the latter. I mean, quite honestly, whenever I get pencils, I look at them and I think, what is the penciler trying to do here? Because what I see in the pencils that I like is what I want to try to keep in the inks, right?
Hmm.
And I have to admit, sometimes that means not necessarily inking exactly what's on the page, but inking what the penciler wanted on the page. Now, a
Okay.
lot of times, if you make a guess like that, you can guess wrong. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
sometimes if you work with someone enough, you can start to understand their thinking. I know what he's thinking when he's drawing this, and I think maybe the shadow isn't quite where he would have wanted it, sort of thing. I mean, sometimes that doesn't work, but sometimes it does. I mean, I really do try to get into the head of the penciler I'm working with and try to figure out what are they trying to say here and how can I say that in ink, you know? And I know when I
Yeah.
saw John Byrne's pencils and earlier, when he was on X-Men and stuff, his stuff was a little more what you could almost say manga-esque. It was much simpler. And as he
Hmm.
progressed, and especially by the time he was on Superman, yeah, he was drawing in a much more Neil Adamsy way. There was a lot of rendering on the muscles and stuff, but there's a great speed. He works so fast, and there's
Yeah.
this great energy to all of his line work, and that's what I really tried to capture was that energy of his line work. And it took, I mean, there were pages I would spend 12, 14 hours inking one of his pages, which he probably
Wow.
penciled in 4 hours tops, because he was penciling
Right.
three pages a day every day.
I used to one of my jokes back in the 90s, I envisioned that he had a giant um glass table with a microfiche underneath, but with a projector, and he would just be able to wheel up to sort of compositions and figures that he had already drawn, and just then lightbox them through and carry on. Like, because he was just so fast
It was
and it was
very,
so consistent,
yeah,
and it was unbelievable.
yeah.
The guy's amazing. My joke was I have like, if he slowed down and just did one page a day, he would revolutionize the industry once again. Like, he could just kind of blow everyone's mind.
I don't know.
He's so capable.
I think I think John's art is exact. I think it's what he wanted it to be. I'm sure he
Yeah,
always wanted it to be better. We all do, like we said a few
sure.
times. But yeah, I don't think if John slowed down, it would change a lot of the look of the page. I don't think. So
I just think how much more stuff he could put in it.
I don't know. Yeah, once again, I don't know if that's better. I mean,
I know.
sometimes, as you well know, sometimes the best solutions are the ones when you're backed into a corner and you don't have time to draw that cityscape. Well, what are you going to do instead?
Mhm.
Sometimes those are the best solutions.
Yeah, it's like looking at those when you can see some, Mignola work, and you'll see that he drew a lot more than you see. He just inked right over
Yeah,
it. He realized, we don't need this. We don't need this. He edited it down to what is necessary,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
which is really a great lesson for everybody. Like we really all should be that, prescient to the work that we're doing to be able to not overdo it in
Yeah,
effort.
it would be nice. That would be a nice world to live in. Yeah, I know when I sit down to do my own penciling, I always try to keep it simple, and I always, but I could just, a little subtle line work here to give a indication of a shadow, and it's yeah, we all overdo our stuff.
Yeah,
We all do.
it's the truth. I think writing is my greatest joy. So I have so many questions about that
Hmm.
process for people. Like for you, I mean, you had this notable event happen with Hawk and Dove as far as the industry goes. Everyone knew that happened. What was like for you where you're like, okay, cool, like I've thrown an anchor out
Hmm.
and it hooked.
Right.
Now I'm gonna go make some waves with this. Like what was your sort of ramping up mentality with that?
Well, I mean, I was just trying to, get opportunities to show what I could do. I mean, like I said, when I worked on Hawk and Dove, I was co-writing it with Barbara, and there
Mhm,
was nothing wrong with that. But since I was known as an inker, I was not being given uh, much credit as a writer, and
mhm,
I had to work very hard to try to convince people I could write stuff on my own. And I believe the first time I had that chance was when Mark Waid asked me to do a Newsboy Legion story for Secret Origins, which he was editing.
mm,
And actually, that was a case where I wrote it and penciled it and inked it. And one of the very few times I did that. And that did open a crack. And when Jerry Ordway was not falling behind, but when he really could not keep up with a monthly deadline on Adventures of Superman, they decided to try me doing little 5 or 6 page backups in each issue of Adventures of Superman, featuring the Newsboy Legion.
okay.
And that gave Jerry enough time to do his whatever it was 16-page lead. And what they found out was people really want to read Jerry Ordway, and I don't blame them. you know the backup features made life easier for Jerry, but it really was not going over well with the readership. But
Mm,
my dealings on that did put me on Carlin's radar. And then when Jerry decided to step down from Superman, when they killed him, might as well, good time to step down. Carlin gave me a call to step in, and that wouldn't have happened without those Newsboy Legion backups. And that was a huge shot. That was a real big shot in the dark for him to throw me
mhm.
into the deep end like that. So, but by that point, he certainly knew I had ideas that I kept throwing around. So it worked out really well. I mean, I really owe my career, my writing career in particular, to Mike Carlin.
Yeah. Well, Mike, great guy. I always had great, interactions with him in and out of the offices. So
Yeah.
he was just a champ. I absolutely love him. How did you? A lot of comic books has a lot to do with the history of comic books. So the character's history becomes the generator for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So like often as writers we'll go back and we'll go, okay, let me let me look for that that thread that wasn't, tied in to something. So did you do that kind of work, or did you just start taking ideas that you'd already had kind of floating around in your head and put them into action?
Well, I mean, with Superman, of course, it was a really different animal because it was, you'd go in once every 6 or 9 months or once a year for a Superman summit, and everyone would sit down and we'd all put different ideas on the table, but then some of those ideas would be big ideas that we would all contribute to. And
Hmm.
if you had an idea that you kind of wanted to do on your own idea, it really, by necessity, had to be a one-issue story. So you really had these sprawling epics, or there's these very tiny moments, and those were what you had on the Superman books. And and I will say, many times I saw an idea put on the table that was made better by someone else. So that was great. And many times I don't even say the same amount of times. I think most times things were made better. But there were times a very personal idea was put on the table, and that was left on the table because there was
Okay.
sometimes no space for that. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah.
so that came with the territory. That came with the territory. Um, but it was a fun group. I really enjoyed working with everyone on the Superman books, all the writers, all the artists, Karl and all the associate editors. It was a really great group of people, you know.
Hmm.
But a lot of times, getting back to your question, uh, um, a lot of times that I can't say I was looking. There would be times I would look at the past and want to do my Bizarro story. I always wanted to do a Mixius Pitalik story, and I never got a chance to. Never, not on the
Hmm.
Superman books, at least. Um, but like I really wanted to do a Challenges of the Unknown story, and so yeah, one of my small one-issue stories features them, and Superman really kind of makes a cameo in that issue, I have to say.
Okay.
So, but I mean, it was that was, I for better or worse, I can't say I always, yeah. I think I go by instinct mostly when I work. What
Hmm.
excites the fanboy in me? What
Sure.
does 12-year-old Karl want to see in this comic? And I mean, uh, I've learned. Let's see how many. I sometimes I've been too much a slave to that. Let me put it that way. Where I know Mark Wade has taught me. Mark Wade has taught me how to take what you love and make it new. Because for many years
Okay.
I was just trying to recreate what I loved, and that
Okay. Yeah, that makes
that
sense.
can be that can be very fun. But it really, in the end, is just like treading water. You're not really going anywhere. So and Mark, he knows what he's doing, and Mark is the one who really taught me to take what you love and make it new. So that's really kind of my guiding line right there.
I like that. No, that's good. I mean, I think that I'm a big proponent of this that 12-year-old scenario. Like we can easily tap into those elements that when we were 12, which just wowed us,
Yeah.
and they still wow us. Like we
Mhm.
can't sort of shake that in us. And I think it just gets sort of poured into the foundation, and the foundation hardens somewhere around that age, and okay, those are in us, and let's just keep on going and we can build on this.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, they say everyone's golden age is when they were 12. That's when your golden age of comics was.
Yeah, for sure. Even though, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that one.
12,
Yeah,
14, maybe you got a few years, give or take there.
yeah, depending on how mature you were.
Right.
There's some very smart 10-year-olds out there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's an interesting thing about the whole with writing. We don't get a chance to push a button and the new idea comes out.
Right.
Like we can't just generate ad nauseum, um, but we have to create. So the ideas, and I'm a big proponent of working, putting your head down, put your hands on the keyboard, and start writing. And I had this moment the other day. I was writing on a project, and I had just been doing all the writing except for the actual writing of the project, writing all these things about it.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was sitting there going through notes and working, and I was sitting in a coffee shop. I'm like, this is stupid. So I just sat down and I just wrote all the number of issues I have, and I just started putting all of the stuff in there, just straight through. And all of the fear of whatever was holding back that do it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something earlier, which I wanted to bring back in, was just the thing about drawing and the fear of that blank page. But the blankest page there is the blank writing page.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the artist, the penciler, has a script.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the inker has pencils. You know, the downstream effect is in play.
Right.
But the blankest page is that blinking cursor, you know, that,
Yeah.
and it's interesting you cite that when it came to the drawing, but you didn't apply it to the writing. And I'm wondering how you make the distinction, or are you bifurcating that so much?
I mean, I have that fear of the blank page with writing sometimes too. I think it comes down for me. I think what it comes down for me. I'm just thinking about this now. If I sit down to write something, I've got a track record behind me, so I can like say, Karl, you've done this before. You can do this again. Sitting down to pencil, I don't have that same track record, and so I can't like convince myself to the same level that I can do it. Put it that way. You know what I mean? I really think that's probably the difference, because I do have the same like with writing. I always, you know, I usually try to have, you know, really strong openings to a book, and usually I can write those very quickly. But then figuring out what comes next is always the tricky part for me. And
Okay.
in fact, you know, finishing off the Impossible Jones book that we're doing right now, the second part, I wrote that an opening six-page sequence, and I go, yeah, this is the opening. I know this is exactly how we need to open it. And next, you know, and that's where I am on that script right now. And I know the pieces that have to come next.
Uh-huh.
I just don't know the best way to introduce them. That's what I'm struggling with right now.
Right. So the ideal job for you is if the studio who makes James Bond movies hires you to write the cold opens for all the Bond films.
Yeah, I'm set. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
you know.
sold. Yeah, I actually, slight tangent here. I rewatched. Oh, what is this? What is the second? The Man with the Golden Gun.
Okay.
And the cold open of that Bond film isn't Bond.
Really? See, I don't remember this.
No,
Okay.
it's Christopher. Why am I blanking? You know, Sauron,
Oh,
Christopher
yeah.
Dracula.
Right.
Yeah, him. It's him. It's his cold open. He is, you know, hunted and being hunted, and I'm watching. I'm like, wait a minute, where's the whole James Bond opening? Like, I couldn't. It was funny. I wonder. I really would love to find out why they abandoned this sort of standard
Interesting.
move. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it was Moore's second movie, so maybe
Right.
they were, hey, let's have a little fun. I don't know. Interesting. Okay, so big open, and then you're sitting there, and you have these sort of these floating elements,
Right.
and it's the matter of tying them together. Do you have any tricks that you have employed that you do? Because I have a few that I do.
Well, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to hear what your tricks are. I know the trick that I go back to time and again is have the character do the exact opposite of what I thought they were going to do. You know, and many times that has broken my logjam. You know, if it was a scene where a character meets someone and is sad about something that's happened, no, maybe he's angry. What happens if he's angry instead? What does that say about him? What does that say about
Mm-hmm.
you know what's happening? A lot of times, I have that happen where I go, he's not going to stay. He's going to leave. What happens when he leaves instead of stays? You know, that I do the exact
Right.
opposite of what my initial instinct was. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, that's more more surprising. It surprises me at least. And you know, once again, it opens up doors that I hadn't considered. And 9 times out of 10, that can get me out of tough spots and make me feel like, oh, you really didn't know what you were doing the first time around, did you? Because this is obviously what you should have done. That's my go-to. That's where I go to first. To try the exact
Okay.
opposite of what you thought you should do.
It feels very it feels a lot like an actor's kind of like when you hear actors talk about how they try to figure out like a stage acting, or they'll they'll try all these sort of emotional kind of takes with whatever this part that might be troubling them, to find that angle that's going to kind of connect them through. And I don't think it's very different than how what I typically do. Is what I will do is I will go and I will sit down and I will start writing about the character,
Interesting.
not specifically about the scene, but I will write about the character and figure out elements about them. And typically that will get my subconscious kind of pulling out some material that will ultimately hook into wherever I need to kind of bring the character.
Yeah. Interesting. Very good. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Well, because it is. I mean, listen, it can be paralyzing. I mean, how many? I mean, there's so many stories of the paralyzed writer.
Hmm.
Just fraught with fear about making the wrong choice. And
And I'll tell you another thing that another, I don't know if it's a trick, but it's certainly a rule I remember. And it comes from Mark Waid again. Mark Waid said there's no such thing as writer's block. All it is your subconscious telling you took a wrong turn.
mm,
So sometimes that's what I do is I go, okay, I don't know what happens next. It's not working. Why is it not working? It's not working not because of this scene on the page before, but really, it's that scene 5 pages ago. That's what's not working. You know, but that does help a lot too. Is your subconscious is telling you you've taken a wrong turn. Look at the way.
mm-hmm.
Look at your map. See where you took that wrong turn.
Well, that's kind of that prescient sense again. You know, using that sort of internal barometer to kind of back up and be aware of what the context
Yeah,
is. And rather than wrestling with that moment, you can kind of get a little further back and then see, oh, you know what, this is where the trouble point
yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, that helps a lot.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, that is the yeah. I mean we all hit that. Do you? I'm just jumping right into another question. Sorry.
Good.
Do you find the form of writing comics guides your creating of comics? Because what I mean by that is, that 20 to 22-page chunk that has been, the model for a long time. You're doing bigger chunks,
I am. Yes.
in your pieces now. So did you feel that constraint and say, I need to make the story, broader to be able to achieve what I want, rather than to less serialized, I guess?
I mean, you're working on Impossible Jones. Yeah. I mean, I I always am aware of trying to tell the story as concisely as possible. I always don't want to waste anybody's time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
not the artist, not the writer, not the reader. So I would like to think that all my years working in Marvel and DC has taught me how to do that and keep things, because really there was a lot of times I wished I had another page or two at Marvel or DC, and quite honestly,
Yeah.
those books would have been a lot better with an extra page or two. But but that has has honed my craft as far as how concise I can keep things.
Mm-hmm.
But I am lucky when I do Impossible Jones that I can say this story really needs to be 28 pages long, and and I can feel pretty justified that yeah, it's a 28-page story, and I love having that sort of flexibility. I love it. Um, so and yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's always the kind of the there is no begging or pleading which is going to change the length of the book in the publisher's eye. Like, it is what it is.
I would say one time I wrote They'd asked me to write a Fantastic Four annual. It came out like in '99 or something like that. And I like wrote the whole annual, and they told me I had 40 pages, and I wrote the annual, and it was 41 pages. And I mean, this was a full
Mm,
script. This was a full script,
right.
and I looked at it, and I could not figure out how to chop out a page. And the editor said, "Send it to me. I'm very good at chopping out pages." And I sent it to him, and he goes, "I just got 41 pages approved." So he actually got me an
Wow.
extra page. They whoever was looking at it up there said there's no page to get rid of, and they liked it enough that they gave us an extra page.
That's a testament to everyone in that food chain.
Yeah,
You know, like, I mean, a testament to you, even though you made the mistake, um, is that you wrote this incredibly well-connected story that, it's like the design adage. Like, if it doesn't serve the function,
right,
the core
right,
function
right.
of what the design is, get rid of it.
Yeah,
And like in writing, it's the same thing.
yeah.
Hmm.
So
Like when you're putting your scripts together, like how many passes do you do before you share it?
I've as many passes until I feel comfortable, I guess. You know,
Mhm.
there are times that I'll give something to David before I'm 100% comfortable because I trust David. And I'll go, David, there's something about this scene here not working. Is it me,
Oh.
or do you see something, or do you agree? That sort of thing. I will do that with David. Um, but generally, I can't say that. Sometimes, as you know, I write a scene and I go, that's it. I nailed that one. And then
Mhm.
another time, I'll be working on page 23, and page 4, it's just bothering me. And I'll go back and niggle on page 4 and go back and niggle on, change a few words. No, these two panels, I could make that. Yeah, that would be better if it was one. I mean, there's times I do that
Right.
too. I can't really say that there's a set number of times I go over a script. Um,
Okay.
you know, so I know that. Yeah, I know there's a sequence in one of the Impossible Jones books that still bothers me, and when we do the collection, I'm going to change that page. I'm going to change that page in the
Really?
collection. Yes, because it really
You,
bothers me.
dialogue wise?
It's really what's happening in the whole scene. I will probably end up adding 2 more pages to that scene when we do the collection.
Okay.
See,
I
but I
love
can
that.
do that. I can do that.
Yeah, you're the George Lucas of your own
I
comic
know.
book
Yeah,
empire.
I can. Well, I mean, many years ago, Tom Grummett and I started to do Section Zero through Image, right? And we did 3 issues of Section
Mhm.
Zero, and then couldn't afford to keep doing it. And then 18 years later, we kickstarted the book and finished it. And I went in and I re-dialogued those first 3 issues. If you compare the Image comics with the book we kickstarted, I completely re-dialogued. And more,
Mhm.
and part of that was because Richard Starkings, who we've talked about before, Richard Starkings, who had lettered the Image comic, when I told him that we were going to kickstart it and try to finish it off, Richard pulled out well, first of all, Richard, thank God, he had the color files. I didn't have them anymore.
Oh
Richard
my
had all
god.
those files. He found them in his garage on like an old floppy disk.
On a jazz drive.
Yes, I know, really, So, but he got me the colors, and he was looking at his letters, and he said, Carl, I think I'm going to refresh the lettering to this. And so Richard re-lettered the whole thing too. So
Oh my god.
if you compare that Section Zero Image comic from way back, because then, thanks to Jim Valentino, once we did the Kickstarter, he reissued and then finished off the Section Zero thing recently.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, those, I guess you would call those first. I consider it like how Charles Dickens kept rewriting the Christmas Carol. That's what I consider.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
if I get a chance to maybe make it a little better or at least a little more satisfying to me, I do. I admit that.
It's a funny adage, like you'll just keep doing it and working on it and working on it and working on it until someone takes it away from you.
Yeah.
Like it's just that kind of thing. But I think that instinct is I don't I mean it's in everyone. I mean we just watched that show that little I guess a David Letterman mini documentary with Bono and the
Oh, I've
Edge
heard about that. I have not seen it. Yeah.
on Apple Plus. It's in conjunction with their new album. And my wife bought me the album, the book Surrender,
Mhm.
sitting there on the shelf, and I haven't read it yet. Sorry, honey. Um, and the it's all their old songs. It's all the songs from their first album up to like their most recent album. It's a 4 album, you know, set
Right.
of all these reimaginings of all their songs.
Wow. Okay.
Of these, however many, let's just say it's 40 songs. Um, and I didn't recognize it until I'm watching this documentary, and they're just playing all these, these kind of classic hits, but kind of newish versions. And I'm like, oh, it's them too. Like they can't even like let it go. Like, we all, if given the opportunity, will put our sticky little fingers in that pot and start messing around.
Yeah. 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 Well, I think even Springsteen has said he looks at his early stuff and says, the songs are pretty good. It's some of the musicality of it that could be better, and
Sure. Yeah, sure. So, okay, your own work.
Mhm.
That wasn't commonplace. It was something that the Mavericks and Rebels did, in the 80s and the 90s. Like there's these gunslingers out there doing their own thing versus the people trying to, fight for a space on, comic book island at Marvel or DC. But like, when did you like, what did you have an aha light bulb moment go off on you to say like, hey, dude, make your own thing?
Well, yes and no. I mean, Tom and I, Grumman and I, had always wanted to go back to Section Zero. We obviously, around 2000, did Section Zero, 3 issues of it. Finances meant we couldn't keep doing it. I just simply could not keep doing a book that was not paying my bills. Neither could Tom.
Right.
And there was a point at one point where we tried to do Section Zero as a web comic. Just do a page a week, and then at the end of the year you got 52 pages, and even that was
Mhm.
impossible for us to squeeze in. We really tried, and I think we did six new pages, maybe 12. But once again, that question of how do we produce this stuff that we love and still pay our bills? That was always.
Mhm.
And then Kickstarter came along, and I heard rumors about Kickstarter for quite a while, but it's that's a big jump. That's a big leap. It's very scary. Um, and but so I'm saying on one hand, the idea of doing creator owned of something that was ours, that was mine, was always there. The opportunity for it was not showing up, and so the opportunity I was getting was working for Marvel and DC and maybe IDW, and but I will say, sad but true, as you get older, those opportunities shrink. And there came a
Mhm.
point where I'm going, I cannot rely on my next paycheck coming from Marvel or DC or Image or wherever. I just can't. And so while the desire to do creator owned was always there, I will admit I was backed into a corner, and I said, I've got to take this Kickstarter jump. I've got to, because otherwise I'm going to go work at Burger King,
Mhm.
and that put, and it was, it was scary, and it's still scary because I'm running a Kickstarter now, and believe me, I need to really raise a bit more money before I feel comfortable about paying my bills for the next 5 6 months. I mean,
Right.
my goal was 20,000, but that really kind of just pays some very basic costs. That really does not pay
Sure.
my bills for the next 5 months. It does not pay David Hahn's page rate for the next 5 months. Um, it's it's a it gives you a good strong start, is what it does. and
Mhm.
but I still have a ways to go before uh, things can ramp and I can say, yes, I'm going to be able to pay my bills for the duration of time it takes us to get this comic out there. So it's still scary,
Yeah.
um, but the rewards are so much greater, at least for me right now, than working for Marvel or DC.
Yeah, I mean, like, going back to the toy analogy, like it is great fun getting to play with somebody else's toys.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is really an absolute blast. That 12-year-old within us is just buzzing with electricity.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even if you go back to the 6-year-old in us, the one who's just free associating with everything,
Yeah.
that's the one who is making everything.
Right.
And that imagination is so explosive and so vivid
Mhm.
that I think that when we make our own thing, then we're really tapping into a much, you know, earlier version and a much more pure version of ourself.
Yeah. Well, you know, I have a 10-year-old son, and he loves Legos. And we get those not massive, but pretty big Lego sets for like crafts out of the Black Panther movie and stuff like that, like
Mhm.
700 pieces, whatever. And he will put that together once, and it'll look
Right.
like, wow, that is a really impressive craft, really impressive spaceship, whatever you want to say. And then he takes it apart, and then he starts making his own stuff. And this kid has got
Mm.
an amazing sense of three dimensionality to him, and he puts together these, amazing, you know, crafts of his own design or buildings. He'll create buildings, and I just really admire how he plays in the toy box like you were saying, but then he takes that toy and reassembles it in a totally unrecognizable way that is really mind-boggling to me. Mind.
Mhm. I was thinking about I've it's funny, you maybe reframe my view on the modern model of Lego. I because I grew up playing with them, loved them to death. They were really my, top 3 toy
Yeah,
favorites. But years have gone by and you see all these sets, these very complicated
yeah,
sets, but like they were like, this is what you build.
yeah,
And thought like there was such a limitation, in the creativity of this because like maybe someone puts it together with a sense of accomplishment and never touches it again.
right.
But what I heard is people, remember model kits when
Oh
we
yeah,
were young?
yeah,
So it's the combination of a model kit and Lego. So you're capable of making the model,
right.
but then you can scratch build from that point on
Exactly. Yeah,
to whatever you want to do.
yeah. When I was a kid, an aunt of mine gave me a model kit of it was like a Dodge pickup truck with a camper back end on it. That was the model kit she gave
Mhm.
me, and I built a different model out of it. I cut pieces, but my aunt was really angry at me because
Really?
I didn't build the model she bought me.
I love it in so many levels because I love the fact that like she wasn't able to see what really the magic that happened. Um, I love what you did. There's like so many kind of like cool little elements within that. Oh, I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, but my son does rebuild the model and does an amazing job of it. Yeah,
Yeah. It's a springboard, but a really interesting springboard that people can kind of grow on.
yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Impossible Jones. Let's talk about the campaign. Let's
Okay.
let's 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 focus on that for now. And
Uh,
oh, is it Mr. Kickstarter?
no, it is not Mr. Kickstarter. So, but anyways, Impossible Jones. We're kickstarting the most recent comic. It's the fourth of four team up stories we were doing, and so we did a graphic novel, and then we decided to do four smaller. The idea was to do smaller stories that were a little more self-contained, that gave us a chance to explore Impossible Jones, the character, and the world she was
Hmm.
in. This because she lives in a fictitious city called New Hope City, and I really like the idea of expanding and exploring that space, and really I think grounding the character more since it is a made up city. It's not like people can look up online what New Hope City is about. And what happened ending up is often happens is the story took on a life of its own, and what was supposed to be four small self-contained stories has become a four-issue arc, which is all interconnected and ends on this big grand finale note, and that's the issue we're doing now. Um, and I don't know. That's what we're kickstarting. It's this issue specifically is supposed to feature. Well, it features Impossible Jones teaming up. They're all team ups with a character called American Angel. And Angel is
Hmm.
A period N period G period E period L period, and she's kind of a Captain America, Iron Man, Joan of Arc character. The Joan of Arc aspect. She's not a religious character. I just really like the idea of this, this religious halo glow around her head. I got really hung up
Mm-hmm.
on that, I think it's a really strong image. And as I say in some of my promo pieces, she's an angel, not a saint. So, and
Right on.
but it's a big enough story that it also brings in some of the other team up characters that Impossible Jones has been with, Captain Lightning and Polecat, both of whom I created in second grade, by the way. And
Oh, no way.
yeah. When I was filling out the world of Impossible Jones, I knew I wanted just a very few superheroes who populate. I didn't want it, Manhattan or something with a million heroes. I didn't even want it Gotham because Gotham's got a lot of heroes. I just wanted like
Yeah.
3 or 4 heroes that kind of police this place. And I dusted off characters from second grade. Polecat, who's very much a daredevil sort of character.
Mm.
And when I created him, I did not know. I mean, I remember very specifically, because there's Black Panther and there's Tiger this and all the Lion. There's all these great cat names that have been taken. No one's taken Polecat. I'll do Polecat. And the reason no one took Polecat is it's slang for skunk.
There.
So that's why you don't see Marvel or DC doing a Polecat comic.
Right.
And I didn't realize that at the time, of course. And I just thought he dresses like a cat and he's got a pole for a weapon. There, we're all
Yeah.
set, you know. But I when I dusted him off for Impossible Jones, I thought, well, he's a city boy. He didn't know it either. He named himself Polecat
Mm-hmm.
for the same reason. I'm good with a pole, Polecat, and now he's stuck with
Yeah.
the name. He learned about the slang too late. He's a city boy.
Right. He can't rebrand.
Now can't rebrand now, but as I always say about Polecat, is his only real, he's a daredevil character. He's a advanced gymnast sort of character. But if you want to say he has a superpower, his one superpower is everybody likes him. He's really
Mm.
likable, and more than that, he knows like half the city by their first name. He
Yeah.
knows these people. He knows who they're married to. He knows who their pets are. He is connected to the city on a very, very basic level. The people in the city are his life. And
Mm-hmm.
anyways, I created him in second grade. And Captain Lightning I did too, just because I like lightning powers. So,
Sure.
but anyways, so we bring both of those back for the grand finale. And there's another character called Holly Days. She was in the first team up book. She's actually a thief who Impossible Jones befriends. And Impossible Jones, if people don't know, the basic idea is she is a thief. She gets superpowers and is mistaken for a superhero and decides to run with it because now she can, the cops aren't shooting at her for one, so that's good.
Right.
Second of all, if she goes into a jewelry store, they're glad to show her their security system. They are happy to share that information with her.
Right.
There's just a lot of pluses to be considered a good guy, even though she has not given up her thieving ways. So anyway, she has struck up a friendship with Holly Days, who is a holiday themed thief, and
Mm-hmm.
and anyways, Holly comes into this story too, and it's a big finale. Everyone gets on stage. They fight a big bad who is planted along the way, and it's it should be a very satisfying conclusion to our 4-issue arc. And along the way, we've got to establish a lot about the city. We have a coffee shop that the cops and a few superheroes hang out at. We've established the art museum in the city. We've established the parks, some of the parks.
The bodega.
What, the bodega? Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, I really enjoy that we've kind of given her world a little more of a foundation. That's very important.
Mm-hmm. It definitely felt like
Yeah.
it felt like in the sense of a city, like you were talking earlier about the not superhero characters, the street level characters who can go into the shop with their outfits on and still enjoy a meal rather than stop traffic.
Yeah.
So you are doing well. I mean, the campaign is going well. It
Yes.
is not in dire straits. So
No, we've reached our funding goal, which means the people are going to get their books. I would like to raise some more money. I would like to raise more
Yeah.
money, so that not just because I'm greedy, but because I actually do need to raise a little more money to pay my bills. Um, but so we still have a ways to go, and I'd like to, we're adding in things to the book to make it worth people's time to support the book. One of the characters that has proven very popular in Impossible Jones' world is a character called Even Steven, and Even
Hmm.
Steven exactly equals the power of anyone he's going up against, because Stephen believes in his heart of heart, in the core of his being, that good will always triumph over evil in a fair fight. It has to be a fair
Mm.
fight. And he's kind of got that Ditko Mr. A vibe going on because he wears a suit. Because I mean, I just thought, if someone's calling himself Steven, he's not wearing spandex. There's no character who wears spandex who calls himself Steven. So but anyways, he's very popular. So one of the recurring stretch goals that we do is we add in little 6-page solo stories featuring him. And the this time around, the first one, which already got we already unlocked that stretch goal. It's a 6-page story that David Hahn will draw and Lee Allred will write. Lee is Mike Allred's brother, and I got
Yeah.
to know Lee. I got to know Lee when I was dialoguing, while I was writing Fantastic Four after Matt Fraction couldn't finish off his run, and Lee stepped in to finish Matt Fraction's run on the FF book, which his brother Mike was already drawing.
Right. 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 Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so Lee and I got to know each other, and I very quickly came to respect him deeply as a writer. And he can juggle so many elements and make it look effortless. And not only that, he's just got this explosive imagination that floors me. And
Mm.
I just really wanted some of that kind of zaniness into one of the Even Stevens stories. So I asked him if he would write one, and he agreed, and I'm very excited about that. And then the second Even Stevens story, it's the stretch goal we're working on right now. That one I will write, because I have not written. I wrote one of these backup stories, but this one would be penciled by Steve Lieber. Steve has agreed to pencil this Even Stevens six
Yes.
pager.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward to that,
Wow.
because Steve is just, first of all, he's a great guy. Lives about 4 blocks from my house, and I mean, let's face it, he's just an amazing penciler, an
He
amazing
is.
penciler. So
He's fantastic. I mean, at this point, it feels like you cannot swing a polecat by its tail and hit a comic reader in your town.
oh,
It is,
Portland, yeah, Portland's got so many great talents too.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. At least you know where you can go get the pages. They're right down the
yeah,
street.
I know where he lives. That's right.
Yeah.
But we still have a little ways to go. I mean, did I read this was going to go up on the 4th? Is that what I heard?
Well, you finish, when are you finishing up on the campaign?
It's either the 13th or 14th of April. So
Yeah. So you will be, this will be the week before
right.
you
So
wrap
we
up.
still have some
So
time, and I would, I'm
yeah.
sure even at this point, um, when people hear this, I would like to think we're only about $1,000 away from finishing unlocking Steve's 6-page story. But beyond that, I will say that we have a special, another special alternate cover that has been agreed
Mm.
to. That I will be, maybe by the time people watch this, they will have learned about it. Um,
Oh, awesome.
but at this point, you know we do have an Adam Hughes alternate cover. We have a Terry Moore alternate cover for this book. We will
Yep.
soon have a third alternate cover by a special artist. Um, we're giving out a lot of little special swag when people get the book. They don't just get the book, but they get some beautiful little chibi stickers that are penciled by Jean Carlo Bernal, who is a Filipino artist who is amazing. He's just an amazing artist, and he has been kind enough to contribute these chibi sticker drawings for all of the team up books. And we have some great pinups that we've put into the book. One by John K. Snyder III, who
Mm.
old pal of mine
Yeah.
from Suicide Squad days. Um, I believe Nicolaj is how you say his name, Nicolaj Villager. He's
Okay.
Canadian, but he draws in a, kind of Toth Romita sort of style, and he did kind of this cool retro modern pinup of Impossible Jones that's going to be in the book. Anyways, I'm trying to say is we got time still before the end of the campaign, and we're going to keep adding stuff to this campaign. There's the possibility. I'm toying with the idea of adding T-shirts. I'm toying with the idea.
Ooh, okay.
We have an old, not old, but in the Impossible Jones graphic novel, Elsa Chartier did a pinup of Impossible Jones, and it's beautiful.
Okay, yeah.
And it would look so good, so good on a T-shirt. I'm like this close to deciding to do T-shirts. It would look so good.
It is hard to to refuse the swag monster's call.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so there's a lot of good reasons, and of course, I think the main reason to support the book is because David and I are really trying to produce a really entertaining, really fun book that you want to read. You know, that you want. This is a world we want you to like and come back to and care for the characters in, and hopefully we're accomplishing that. That's all I can say. Hopefully.
The penultimate issue was great. I didn't feel lost. I felt right involved with the whole thing
Good.
throughout the whole story, and it does the job where you go, okay, so what's happening next?
Good. That's
so
like
you
want on the last page. You want him to say what happens next.
Yes. So that was job done.
Okay,
Say.
Great. Thank you.
Well, Karl, I'm not going to hang you up too much. I know you have to call Mr. Kickstarter back and negotiate for a better vig. But it was an absolute pleasure. I promise if you come back out to the Heroes this year, I will walk up and say hi.
Okay.
I will not.
Are you like in, where are you? Where are you?
I live in Asheville, so I live in the cool little mountain town, an hour and 45 minutes away from.
See, actually just after 4th of July, we will be in Raleigh because my sister lives in Raleigh.
Oh, wow!
So and I've actually arranged a store appearance there. I forget the name, Galaxy Comics, something like that. Anyway, but I won't be at Heroes this year. I did it last year, and I just thought I'd change it up a little this year. But next year, 2023, is this 2023? 2024, I will be, 2024, I'll be at Heroes. Okay? So look me up.
Yeah, thanks. All this info will be in the description, so people will be able to click on a hot hyperlink and hot link. What the hell am I saying? Hyperlink, and get straight to the Kickstarter. And
I have to say it's easy to get to Kickstarter. It's just impossiblekickstarter.com. That's it. It'll take you right there.
That's brilliant. That was a great. Did you come up with that idea?
I don't know if I came up with the idea, but I grabbed the URL. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I don't see people doing their own custom URL that much for these.
I know I do it. I know Ron Randall does it for Trekker. He has trekkerkickstarter.com. But
okay.
But
I love it.
That's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real inexpensive way to make it happen.
Yeah.
So once again, thanks.
Well, thank you.
This is an absolute pleasure. Yeah, absolute pleasure.
All right. And you got to get back. You have a writing deadline, don't you?
Thanks.
It's been a great time talking to you, Alex. All right.
See you, Karl.
Bye-bye.